Warm welcome to Climate Governance Initiative Global Summit 2022 and to Board's Impact Forum, which is the Nordic chapter. And we're delighted to have an exciting webinar for you today. My name is Liselott Engstam. I'm the chair of Board's Impact Forum, and I'm also a member of the Global Board of Climate Governance. But for the rest, I'm a board member and chair and NED on both listed and private companies, exactly as the rest of you. Our agenda for today is that we will be able to listen to the Professor Benedsen from INSEAD, who will give us a framing remark on active owners. And then we will have some perspective sharing of some trailblazing Nordic active owners and chairs and board members, Erik Urnes, Katrin Löfberg and Peter Ahlström. After that, it's your turn. We are going to ask you a couple of questions and try to understand your perspectives. And we will use that also in the panel discussion and the Q&A that will follow, and a short closing remark and what happens next. You are all muted with your video off. However, the chat box is open for your comments and it's moderated by our board member, Aja Berlund. Do please keep to the subject and avoid marketing. Please also use the Q&A tab for questions to our speakers. The webinar is being recorded and will be shared as well later on. And for technical issues, share your email over the info at Board's Impact Forum and we can see if there's something we can arrange quickly. So it's time to meet your first presenter, Morten, if you can come on camera. So Professor Morten Benedsen, he is a professor of economics from the University of Copenhagen, but he's also a professor at INSEAD, the family enterprise part. He's also at the sustainability part. He is therefore an expert in both family business and boards and sustainability. He's also an advisor to many global firms, both Danish and UK government, to the European Commission, to private equity funds, World Economic Forum, etc. He has a PhD from Harvard. He's an author of 3 books and many articles and many cases, and we're delighted to have you. Warm welcome, Morten. Please take it away.
Thank you so much. Let me see if I can figure out sharing my screen. It's a great pleasure to be here, and it's a great pleasure to talk about active owners and sustainability, in particular in a Nordic context. And I've chosen to try to make a little bit of a 10 minutes framing and hopefully raise some of the questions and discussions that I'm sure our exciting board members will talk more about afterwards. It's no surprise to start out with that the world today has problems, and the firms are both part of the problems, responsibilities, share the responsibility, but also part of the solutions. We all know that 3/4 of all greenhouse gases today comes from enterprises. 3 billion individuals are estimated to work in firms, primarily private firms across the world. So the well-being of our planet and the well-being of our humans are very closely related to how we govern our firms. Now, going down to the board level and to the firm level, obviously sustainability is a topical issue for most boards in Scandinavia and in many other countries around the world today. It is another issue. It is another theme that boards have to tackle. And maybe it's a nice way to start to think about how much development boards and board composition and board policy have had the last 50 years. It was only in '92 that the Cadbury report came, and which became all the national reports of good corporate governance. And we had a number of very, very important themes that boards have to figure out. And the latest one is sustainable governance, how boards, how active owners can be part of the solution to some of the biggest challenges we have, the ESG challenges and the sustainability goals across the world. And obviously, this is something that impacts the purposeful cooperation in all levels. I mean, when firms start to be governed by purpose, and when firms start to take ESG and sustainability seriously, it's something that filters down the organization. And active owners and active boards in the sustainability sphere and living up to the SDG goals of the United Nations really is about pushing leadership on all levels towards the left of this figure, towards that operation is about compliance, that management is about responsibility, that board is about leadership and purpose, that ownership is about stewardship and purpose of making something which is important in the world. And even the regulation becomes for the public service. And obviously, when we don't do that, we end towards the right side here, which is where we don't want to be. And many firms are working very hard to not to be today. I think I only brought one case, but I always think there's something nice to think about, that ESG and sustainability is not a new concept. My favorite family firms, I'm a professor in family business, is the Cadbury family's firm, the big chocolate company, which was founded in 1837. And as many of you probably know, they were Quakers, and Quakers was a very social-minded religious movement. And basically all the famous Quaker firms and enterprises were in business to do ESG and to do sustainability and to improve people's health. At that time, we didn't talk about so much about greenhouse gases, and we actually had articles about that in the 1850s. But in general, this was about, you know, improving the employees' well-being, be sure that hunger was not part of working in firms, that alcoholism was deleted, that slavery was deleted. And the Quakers, and in particular the Cadbury, was super enthusiastic in this, you know, 150 years before any of us thought about sustainability. So I always feel a little bit comfort with knowing that, you know, it might be a topic we talked about last 10 years, but we are certainly not the first to that. From there, I also want to say that I think family firms, so Cadbury, as you know, was a family firm for 150 years, but was taken over by Kraft and is now part of Mondelez in 2010. But it really illustrates some of the best things about family firms. And of course, the Cadbury himself became the chairman of the Good Corporate Governance, the British UK report, and is the founder of everything in corporate governance, basically, that we do today. This leads me to some of the dilemmas I see, in particular in family firms. In the Nordic countries, we have many very, very strong and very, very impressive family firms. And I think family firms and the family involvement in business give some opportunities, but it also gives some caveats. Obviously, families who are doing good, families who are active owners in sustainability and have a purposeful meaning with their business, they are very good at driving the entire sustainability effort. And this is linked to some of the fundamental issues in being a family owner, namely the long-term vision, often that there are strong values in the family, that families, in particular when they become in multiple generation families, are very loyal to places, to local communities, to countries, and to the social environment around the firm's employees and these things. And we also see that many families, in particular when they become wealthy, get engaged in giving back to the society. When that is said, I think family firms really have something good going on in the sustainability, but they also have caveats. Family firms often have less checks and balances. So some of the biggest corporate governance scandals, just think Parmalat, or in Denmark we had Nordic, you know, were all done by family firms. There's also a dangerous when engagement becomes entitlement. We could think about and not all family firms have the right values. Think about the Sackler family, who basically created the opioid crisis because they didn't really think about where their money was come from. And unfortunately, we also have to say that whenever there's a tax fraud and some of these secret tax lists that are published, we often see very rich families and even enterprise families on these lists. So this is the special thing I would say about family firms. They have great opportunities. Some of the best agents in the sustainability debate today are family firms. Think about La Roche, think about many of the large Swiss families, some of the Scandinavian families are very engaged. But it's also, unfortunately, some of the worst cases we also see in family firms. Let me finish by talking a little bit about sustainability accounting. And I would say as a starting point that the drivers, of course, are the UN sustainability goals and the kind of three triple bottom line. Love child have many names, so we have many names for ESG triple bottom line, but it's all about the sustainability agenda, taking the planet, the people, and the value creation into account when we think about the value creation in our firms. I'm very impressed now by, it's only 2 years ago that the World Economic Forum and the four big accounting companies made their joint report, which is now part of EFRS today, and which have become very influential all over the world. I already now see in many corporate boards today that a lot of the things that were done 2 years ago, the firms are trying to get into the sustainability accounts. So this is, as a starting point, I think a very powerful starting point, that we see engagement, we see active owners that really try to implement the whole idea into a practical sustainability accounting. When that is said, I also been looking at many sustainability accounts the last year, and we are not there. and I think that's not a surprise for anybody. I see a broad spectrum of attempt to do sustainability account. This is our famous Danish company, Lego sustainability account. And obviously what we can see here is that what Lego uses for is a commitment to the future. It's not in some sense a retrospective backward looking thing. It's really about what we want to do in the future. And I think this is some of the challenges I see going forward in the practical world of sustainability accounting, that it's not still clear what product we end up with. First of all, there's not a regulated standard. So for some firms, we could say a promise list of promises, maybe even a marketing device. And for our firms, it's really a documentation of the current ESG behavior. The second issue, I think, which is worth discussing is, what is the purpose? What is the purpose for the firm? What is the purpose for the stakeholders? And what is the purpose for the society? And I don't think that is settled down now. Finally, how do we integrate sustainability and financial accounting? Right now, most firms would have a financial account which follows the rules and the laws, and then a sustainability account which has much more leverage in how it is presented. And on a more technical thing, I also think that we need to be better at actually calculating the social impact. What goes into the value creation, what goes into the value destruction, and the whole concept of opportunity cost. Most of these accounts I see today, they just put anything in, without thinking about how resources would be used if they were not used in the particular company. But I think we are, in a very exciting moment. I think I see a lot of progressive thoughts and a lot of energy in doing this, but obviously we still have to figure out what is the right form. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Morten, and thanks for sharing that framing remarks. We will ask you to come back shortly when we have the panel discussion. Let's see what some of these trailblazing companies are doing. So I want to welcome on camera Peter Ahlström. He's the CEO of Ahlström Real Estate, which is part of the Ahlström Capital. He has a master from Arcada University, and he's also an International Directors Program graduate. He has experience from broad set of industries, which also your company is part of: retail, real estate, forestry, hospitality, and industry sectors. And you also have a lot of experience outside of your family company. You're a board member of Vestas, Broman Group, MVR Yhtyme, and Myrea Foundation. And you're the 5th generation family member. Warm welcome, Peter.
Thank you so much. So thank you all for having me here, and here I will tell some insights, partly or mostly actually from our family business, which has the master brand Ahlström. And just so you get the if you can go to the next slide, I would just tell you a bit background so you can better is that we are a very large family. We already have the 7th generation coming up, and so that means that we are over 400 family members. But we try to, let's say, to have people in the position of trust really on skill. That means that we have about 20 people in different position of trusts, but we are just 5 family members really in the operative business. So that's I think it's quite an interesting thing, and we are trying now to get. We have seen that we want to have the next generations being more involved, but to have also the younger generation coming along. We have tried to figure out a bold enough vision that we can strive and work for, because really the youngsters they don't take anything. They need to be committed to have this, and I think when we made up this vision, a better world for future generation, we had several generations coming along, and we tried to then have everybody on board when we launch this. Next, please. Okay, so as I said, we have 170 years of history, and really it started really with Antti and Eva, who are here on the picture, and so we have a legacy to carry on, and it's really goes with through our values, so ambition and responsibility. And what is interesting is that really it's really part of our DNA in working. We have inclusion, we have many things. So, for example, Eva was the CEO or head of the company after her husband's death. So we have very strong ties also with ladies being in the business. But anything, I mean, what we do, it has to have long term and this value creation that also Morten took up. So it's really embedded in everything we do. Next, please. Still from, let's say, I think it's elementary that the owners take charge of this and are committed. And what we have done since a few years is really training our owners. So to have this understanding what we are talking about in the business, they have to go along, both business and family. So we have this trainings in the way, and that way we can have people also aligned in this. And we have through different modules and courses. They are like starting with family business, so then we have identity networks, finance and governance, entrepreneurship, but sustainability has been in the last 2-3 years really the high topic, and the ESG matters. And this we have not done alone because we are not that smart. We have used also the University of Aalto in Finland. And I think we have having a more professional way of working. I think it has also been more accepted that it's not only homemade. This is how it's working around the world. Can I have the next slide, please? So here is just a small a roadmap how we have done with ESG matters, and I would say that ESG, of course, has been on top of mind for some years, but in the earlier days it was more we talked about the environmental impact, and this has been with the family and company already for a long time, because we were in the industry of pulp and paper, which did a lot of mess in the environment, and so we had water cleaning and stuff like that. But I think that we are still we are on a good way, but there's much more to be done, and have a better understanding still, even just to have this aligning within also the family and the company, and we can just go on learning more and more. And it's great actually to have on this poll we have these other Scandinavian family companies that I think, at least with Catherine and Erik, that we can continue the dialogue after this panel. So can I have please the next slide? So here just a few focus areas that we are working on the, let's say, on the sustainability matter, and we have just in the last year we have included also biodiversity, and then on the social part we have diversity and inclusion. In Scandinavia, I would say in Finland is a bit on the background that we have not taken so many people from other countries. We need workforce here. We have a hard time in some business to hire skilled people, but we still have some, I think, prejudice in taking in people from other countries and other nationalities. Can you please go on to the next one? And so here is more like in one chart we have the UN Global Compact part. We have the UN Sustainable and Development Goals. And here we have, I think, very important, we have the human rights. We talk about labor thing, environmental and anti-corruption. This is something we need to have along, maybe not for Finland and Scandinavia, but as working all around the world, we need. The world is not that nice when you go in some places. And I think I have 1 minute more, and here just a highlight of how we work with our companies. We work through boards, and we try to, through KPIs and way of measuring things, and we are quite well, but we still have a lot to do. So with these few words, thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Peter, and it's very interesting to see how you're trying to push through both boards and your KPIs. We will come back to you shortly on the panel discussion. So I'd like to welcome up our next presenter, Catherine, if you can come on camera. Hi, Catherine. So hello. Catherine is the chair of the board of Löfbergs, which is one of the biggest family-owned coffee roasters in the Nordic countries. So Löfbergs was founded just in the beginning of the 1900s by her great-grandfather. And you've been working in many different settings for an establishment, marketing, communication. In 2015, you took over as chair. You are also the chair of International Coffee Partners and Coffee Climate, where the work is about contributing to small-scale farmers to meet the climate changes and improve the living conditions, which is, I guess, one part of your sustainability. Warm welcome, Catherine.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's great to be here. It's very interesting to also hear the previous presentation and see all the similarities that there are. We are different businesses, but we have a lot of similarities, as you can see here. Please, next slide. I also want to start a little bit with the history, because as Liselott was mentioning, we were founded in 1906 by my great-grandfather together with his two brothers. And it was really from the beginning, you can see a lot of values that are still existing very much in and we live by them still in the company. And as owners, we always try to really get this into our way of doing business. And but of course, like Morten was mentioning in the beginning, it was a little bit other focuses then. It was more focus on the local society, but it's all comes down to people and the environment in some sort. So it's been there all the way in our history, but of course it's been developed then over time, and a little bit different focuses in different time periods. I can say that in 1980s already we started really to be more structured around this work. Okay, next. I just wanted to show you our group, how it looks like. We have on top of it, we have the owners, the holding company, and then we have some real estate, we have the coffee business, we have an investment company, and we also have a foundation, which we also focus on sustainability projects in the coffee farming countries. So next slide, please. And I'm the chair then for the coffee business. A couple of years ago, we did some work looking ahead in the owners group, among us in the 4th generation, which I belong to. We called it Next Generation 2050. We looked ahead until 2050. And one part that was, it took some time, this work, and it's not only the documents that came out as a result, but I think it was very important with the discussions that we had coming out from based on a lot on our values, of course, but also looking ahead and looking where do we want to take the company, why do we own it, and what do we want to leave to the next generation. And as you can see here, we have a little bit similar as you had the vision for Ahlström's, but we have good moments for future generations. And when we talk about generations, it's not only our own family, of course, it's next generation consumers, coffee farmers, employees, etc. And we were very clear in our vision here to, of course, have a good business, be good for it has to be good for the business, but it also have we can also influence the society with our business. So both the business and the society could benefit from us doing good things. And of course, well, you can change the slide to next. Of course, we also have governance and principles. I won't go through all of them here, but it comes down a lot when it comes to different roles that we probably will talk a little bit about later on. The different roles that you have and the responsibilities that the different roles have. So we have a lot of principles around this, and we are very clear on this, because I agree also with Morten that many family businesses maybe are not so structured when it comes to governance. And I think it's very important that we are, in order for us to really succeed and be good for business and good for society. And of course, from this, we also have owners' directives for the different for the real estate, for the coffee, for the investment business, with of course goals and both financial goals, but also other goals that we have to 2050 that is then brought down to a little bit more closer short-term goals, of course, in the different business areas. But we also talk a lot in the owners' directives about what we don't compromise around, and guidelines for what we think is important. So it's like a framework. You can take the next slide, please. We have worked with sustainability reports for many years, and we try to really develop this and always improve the work that we do, not only when it comes to reporting, of course, but the actions that we do. And it's important that we look back what we have done, but also very important to be transparent on what has not been done, what challenges we have, and also looking ahead with targets, clear targets. And we have also noticed if we have tough targets, that could really influence others also to come along. So it's very important. And this is just from the values that we have, the focus areas that we have: circular, fair, and inclusive. And we always link them, of course, to the SDG goals. And we have a lot of then detailed goals underneath those focus areas. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Catherine. Very interesting and nice to hear how it's been built up. And you will also come back at the panel. So Eric, if I can ask you to come on camera. We'd like for all of you to meet Eric, who has an engineering degree. He has an MBA from INSEAD. He's the vice chair of the Linden group, and he's also a chair of Bintel, Senscom, Mind Park, and he's a board member of Höganäs. And I know you're going to share a bit about your companies very shortly, because even if the generation is not that old, a lot of your companies are really, really old and have a very good history. And you also have a very interesting background working in many of your holdings, so you really can have a good perspective on it. Warm welcome, Eric.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. And as Liselott said, Linden Gruppen, we're a second generation family business, but all our businesses are very old, as you can see here. We have the oldest one is Höganäs, who was founded in 1797. We're a holding company, 4 main businesses, about 20 billion SEK in turnover and 5,000 employees around the world. So quite different in size, completely global, also, as you see, quite industrial. And we've been working with sustainability for a long time, and I guess finally start feeling actually now we're starting to make some real progress. And it's taken us, my wife and myself, 10 years to finally land in our vision and our purpose. And this has very much been owners driven. And our purpose is to empower our companies to prosper and to lead the transition to a sustainable world. It's very, very clear in what we want out of our businesses. It's difficult to get traction. I do think you need to have a lot of attention from the board and from the owners to get this going. And what I want to share with you today is really the next step in our sustainability journey, where we have decided to try to eliminate the conflict between goals. So I'm sure all of you have seen sustainability goals conflicting with financial goals. And then how do we create a way to look at this in a holistic manner? If you show the next slide, please, Liselott. So what we wanted to try to do is to align financial goals together with sustainability goals, and we put this into what we call our true value creation model. And the idea here is that to capture both the positive and the negative impacts of all your goals. Obviously, we started as everybody else with the materiality analysis, and then we have picked the areas where we have the biggest impact. For our subsidiaries or our daughter companies, they might be different, but this is what we as a holding company overall, what the overall looks like. Then we spent a lot of time figuring out how can we monetize these, so how can we quantify these impacts in monetary terms. Some of them we have been able to quantify, which you will see on the next slide, and some we're not able to quantify. So what we actually do is we say, well, what's our true value creation? Well, we start with our earnings, as you see on the left. Then we contribute towards society in terms of salary and pay. We pay a lot of taxes. Our biggest impact is our carbon emissions in terms of negative impact. Then we have waste, occupational health and safety, and also imbalance in our gender in our businesses. Traditional industrial businesses, we're not succeeding fast enough in getting a gender balance there. This ends up with landing in what we call a true value creation. this is not simply, it's reasonably scientific based. We worked with a lot of research organizations. And so salaries, for example, one krona of salary doesn't mean 1 krona on this bar. It's linked to minimum salary levels and the impact of salary. So paying good wages in India, for example, will have much higher impact than paying above market wages in Sweden. If you look at carbon dioxide as an example, most people will look at the cost of the trading rights. We price our carbon cost at roughly 150 euros per ton. So this is the trading rights plus the social cost of carbon. And we feel quite confident that we find reasonably scientific ways of determining this. So the way to measure it is quite clear. And this is a starting point. With this, is, as you see here, is from our integrated sustainability and annual report from last year. We are now rolling this down to our wholly owned subsidiaries, where they will report up. And obviously we have goals in terms of both the value creation, but this gives us a really good way of tracking. It will also be used in investment applications where you can start trading off, saying, you know, not only the cash flow, but also the true value creation model. The model is not complete. As you see, there are several important aspects of sustainability that are not in here. For example, sustainable product offering, community involvement, employment engagement, children's rights. We're not able to monetize that in a scientific way at the moment. So what we're doing is we're tracking them with specific targets on the side. Our hope is obviously that all the most important aspects will be able to be quantified in monetary terms. So you get a model that is complete. And then if you talk about your true value strategy, all the compromises between earning and sustainability will be included in that. So that will create very, very good alignment. At some point, we'll publish this framework. It's not quite ready yet. We've done some tours of the big business schools. We're getting a lot of attention. Our employees are really engaged in this, and we feel that we're getting the strategic discussions are sort of lifted to a new level, which is really, really exciting. If you want to read more about this, you could look at our website, lindengruppen.com, in our integrated annual report and sustainability report. And that's all I was planning to say. I guess the biggest tip is if you want sustainability to happen, you need to push really hard from the owners and from the board, because it's a long and difficult journey, and people need to feel that they have the backing, and you're not going to solve everything at the very beginning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. And I think your journey here and how you are expressing it is also an inspiration for many companies that has not come at all as far. I'd like for everybody to come on camera from the panel and Morten. And meanwhile, may I ask Cecilia to launch the poll so that we can ask the questions. Can you do that? Right, great. So we have 3 pretty simple questions for you. The first one is if you think your owners have a deep understanding of sustainability and a willingness to support the company transition. The second question is, do your board have a high sustainability ambition, and have they clearly expressed the reasons behind this ambition? And finally, have your company clearly expressed sustainability objectives that well supports a net zero carbon emission? And we were tough. We put it out to 2030 here to see where we can get in terms of the push to go. And meanwhile, while people are answering that, we will start with a question which I believe is also put into the Q&A, and that is, what has been the key challenges in integrating sustainability into the strategy, and how did you overcome that? What did you do? Peter, do you want to start?
Thank you. Well, for us, the problem has been, as I said in the beginning, is that we have such a broad set of businesses, and as we are a holding company, we are working through the boards then so this is the slowness, how we will interact with the boards, and then having it back, and it's in the year calendars and everything like that. And as we just started in 2018 in really going deep into this, that I see it's a matter of the communication then through the holding company to the actual boards and how it is linked together.
Catherine, how did you overcome your challenges, and what are you doing to push the agenda?
I think it's very integrated, as I talked about earlier, in our whole way of doing business. We've done it for a long time, and it's very much in the DNA, like Peter said, for us owners. But I think it's very important to never let go of the issue. I mean, being very persistent and being be reminding ourselves and board and management the whole time to really get that perspective. I think it's also very important how you have the composition of the board. I mean, who do you elect as board members? That is also that has also other experiences from the outside, but have the real commitment around these issues from the beginning, because otherwise it will be very, very tough. I think one challenge looking at really now also the last 2.5 years is for all companies, I think, to be that everything it's a risk that everything goes very short term, and that you are really here and now and trying to solve challenges to really be able to still have this long-term perspective and the sustainability issues in mind at the same time, that you have to handle the short-term challenges also.
Right, and Eric, what has been your main challenges, and how do you overcome them?
I think it's to create momentum. When I look at where we are today, it's so much easier because everybody, it isn't a question whether we have a problem. 10 years ago, there was a lot of people who were wondering whether we had a question, but I think so it requires, as Catherine says, a lot of persistence and very clear directions, but also involvement, because education, I think, has been really important, so people understand, the building blocks of the challenge and how they can impact it. But what's really positive now is that we see when we recruit young senior managers, they wouldn't join some of our companies unless we had a really good sustainability strategy. So I think it's flipping quite quickly now, which is really makes us very happy, because that also means that the push from the owner's side is actually taken over by the subsidiary boards and the subsidiary management, and they're driving it. So, but I think it's conviction and persistence, I think, is really important, together with education, so people don't get too scared by it, because it's for some chemical or smelting industries, it can sound quite scary to become net zero.
Absolutely. Peter, another comment, and then I think Cecilia, we can close the poll.
Yes, well, Eric said a good thing that you can attract board members, but I think even with the younger generations, having just employees, that you need to have a good story why to come. There is a market that you can choose today.
Right. If we can share the results from the poll, I think, Morten, I wanted to ask you, because here you have quite a difference. We have about half that agrees that the owners drive it, but we still have almost half that is neutral or even disagree. Let's go to the boards and see if the situation is better there. Nah, I think it's kind of reflecting. It's about the same. And then the commitment from the company. Now, we were a bit tough there on the target. The commitment is also basically even more neutral than the others. Do you want to comment on that?
First of all, I would say I think this reflects that we are still in a very early stage, right? And in this panel, we see some of the Scandinavian boards which are very far away here and have done a fantastic job as I told, I mean, I really liked Eric's presentation and that you can push this so far. Not everyone is there, but so that's one factor, right? This is new. As I said, it's only 2 years since the big sustainability report came from the accounting firms. Second, not everybody is engaged either, right? I mean, unfortunately, there are many owners and active owners who still don't see this as a social problem that owners and board members need to prioritize super high. As I said, some of the biggest sustainability scandals we have seen in the world have been in firms with very strong owners. And I would also say third, that there's this big uncertainty about where this is going. You know, there's no rules, there's no formalization, there's not even an agreement about why we are doing this, right? I mean, the representatives we hear here are very strong families who drive internally to some extent, as I listen to Eric and Kathleen, and it's something about, you know, wanting this as a family. So I think I'm not puzzled that there's a big variation.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think that also reflects whether you're actually a family business or not. I think it's quite reflective of the rest of the world as well. How much can we push through? However, I think we are also sitting in a bit of this slow system that we talked about. So you are now acting through boards. You're sometimes yourself a board member on those boards, and sometimes you are pushing it in other ways. What are the most important progress drivers that you believe that boards should influence, and that you are maybe even putting an expectation on them to drive? Who wants to start with that? Do you want to go, Eric?
Yep. Well, I think as a board member, you need to do the materiality analysis. So it's actually, you need to understand what sustainability means for your business. Once you do that, then you need to set goal and you need to measure. And you need to, I would almost start measuring before you know exactly what's important for you, because getting the right data takes a lot of time. So one of the things we've done is we put all this sustainability reporting in under finance, because those are the people who are really good at numbers. And it's taken us, 3 or 4 years until we started getting stable data. So I think, know what's important, set goals and follow up. And not just say, net zero in 2030. What's the path there? So you know whether you're progressing or not.
Right, and be clear about the path, even if you're not sharing it outside.
Sorry, just one important, and accept that there will be some answers you will not have today. Because I think some people are really scared to say, I know I can't get there. And say, that's fine, do what you can. And then as technology evolves, you will be able to resolve some of the final bits towards the end of the timeline.
Thanks so much, Eric. Kathleen, what do you
well, I agree a lot with Eric too, but I think, and as you say, to really look at your own business, to look at the value chains, to look at where do you have your biggest challenges, your biggest impact on environment, where are your social challenges the most? For us, it's the coffee origin countries, the coffee growing countries. That's where we have the challenges, both on the environment and the social side, and really do prioritize there. To do most of the work, but not to leave out the rest, because sustainability is broad. And you have to take into consideration how you treat employees, inequalities, waste, everything in your own nearby production area and so on. But I think that and set clear targets, and I think it could be good sometimes to really stretch the targets, because as I said, you can also gain a lot by having competitors and others really to be following you, and then you are kind of pushing the whole industry. So and really follow up. I think that's very important.
And Peter, what
I
are
think
the drivers?
Well, there's so many things. I think Katrin and Erik touched the things. I think we have some other issues also that needs to be handled. So I'm very contented, but Katrin.
Yeah. So one of the questions, you have special roles because you can act as owner, you sit on the board, sometimes you're the CEO. What are the learnings from those different roles? What do you think that other people who don't have that luxury to sit on the roles can actually learn from you? If you were only board members, how do you think the dialogue should be with your owners? Who want to start? Peter.
Okay, well, first off, I would say that you need to have yourself and some sort of what's your own ambition in this. But mainly, I think so much is clarity and talk in languages that everybody understands. Don't do it too complicated. And then also I would say that also walk the talk. When you talk about sustainability, you need to pay attention to also smaller things, and because you will have eyes on yourself.
Absolutely. Erik, what's your perspective?
I think it depends. I mean, if you're a private company, then it's very important to understand the ownership agenda. So what's the purpose, as I think Katrin talked about, what's the purpose for them owning this company? And because if you can set a purpose and a vision that's aligned to that, then that's sort of the good question you always ask when you're discussing a strategic thing. Is this aligned with our purpose and our vision? And if it is, yes, you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
So I think that's, and also a purpose that you as a person feel proud of, and you can look your grandchildren in the eyes and say, this is what I've been trying to do for the last 50 years.
Thank you. Katrin, do you want to comment?
Yes, I think for us it's not to choose either role. It's many times that you have two roles at the same time, or you have two hats that you have to, but I think it's very important to, as much as possible, keep them apart and say, what is my role here? Yes, I'm the chairperson for the board now. I'm not here as the main focus is not as owner, so keep the roles apart. And I think as board members, external board members, I think it's very important that you speak out, and that we try always to also, when we recruit new board members, to really have people with strong integrity and that are really willing to speak out and not to be afraid to say something against the owners, because I think that's really a challenge sometimes. Yeah. But then the owners need to listen. If you take in external board members, you have to listen and take in those comments, ideas and so on.
Thank you so much. Morten, did you have any comment on this role mix thing from your perspective? And we can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. No, I don't have much to say, but I think what we see from many case studies is that there are two things that matters. One is the purpose of the owners and the agreement of the purpose, and the other thing is also that this is an area still where individuals matters.
Right.
A lot of the driving forces in inspiring individuals, probably because it's such a new thing and it's getting its shape and form.
Right. And I wanted to hear with Cecilia if we have some questions from the group and the audience here.
I think most of them have been up, but I think one of the things is that, what do you see different as a family company? Do you have different challenges than another company? And many of you are involved in both situations. So could you please sort of see what the difference is? Thank you.
Thank you. Peter, do you want to go first? Yeah.
Well, definitely, I would say as a private company, we can take the long-term vision and really over quarters. It's really a matter of marathon.
Katrin, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, I think also you have the personal commitment. Like Eric said, it's also next generations will look at you and see what you did out of your time and how you contributed. So it's a personal commitment. But I think also on the opposite side, it's also a risk if you don't have really strong and engaged board members. It could be a risk that they lean back a bit because the owners are very strong on these things. So, and I think the whole board needs to really be committed, and the management, you know, on all levels, as you have talked about. It's important.
Eric?
Yeah, and I mean, I think the great benefit is if you're, depending on how many, but the family is, but if it's a small family like mine, you know, it's you know, owners of meat and blood, and they can, you know, you can be very powerful in interactions with boards and employees. But I think and one of the big challenges when the families get better is to be very clear on the governance structure, as I think both Peter and Katrina talked about, where actually this is why 90% of all family businesses fail in the third generation, is because they can't manage the transition and keep these different roles and values, which is, you know, the family values, management values, and ownership values, which can make life very tricky. So a good governance is incredibly important, and very clear governance.
Indeed. The clarity comes up again and again. Do you have a 30-second recommendation to our audience? What should they, and think about them now primarily as board members, what could they do to help you better if they were on your boards? Who want to start?
I can start. I think the one line for, in particular for family firms, is it's super important to be accountable for the way you earn your money, and not only being entitled to, you know, the profit that your firms give you.
Thank you. Who wants to go next? Katrin, do you want to go?
I think all board members nowadays, it's not only in family business, but especially important that external board members are really the ones that should bring in new insight and keep updated on the world around us. I think that's also one of the challenges for family businesses, you know, to not get enough from outside.
Right. Thank you so much, Katrin. Eric?
Sorry, what was the question?
The question, if you have a final recommendation.
A final recommendation.
Board members, if they were on your boards. Yeah.
Well, first of all, make sure that there's more external board members than family members. That's how you get a good governance balance in the operating boards.
Very good.
And you know, listen to them. So when I was CEO of our family business, it would have been as much preparation as if it was a public company, I would have thought. I mean, maybe not as slick slides and as much communication around it, but that process is really valuable. If you keep the discipline in that process, you can come very far, because the benefit of a private company is that you can make so quick decisions, and you can think, as Peter says, you can think, you know, 20 years is medium term for a family business, which is very different from a quarter to quarter thinking for public companies.
Indeed it is. Peter, do you have any final comment? Recommendation?
Well, I would really hope, and I'm looking also, we have been talking with our board, is really the nomination of the board, and really the diversity in having nationalities, age, and really putting in, not just talking, pushing the nomination forward.
Thank you so much, and warmest thank you for sharing your exciting journeys, and we'll hope that we can keep this dialogue going, and you're also involved, most of you, with Boards Impact Forum, so thank you so much for that. Thank you to Morten, Eric, Katrin, Peter. Also thanks to the audience who were here and engaged, and thanks indeed to our partners, which is most of the board networks in the Nordics. Now, you had the chance to go on many more interesting and exciting summit events, and I just put up an example. There's many more. You can go into the application. If you can't find it, go on Boards Impact Forum and look at our event, and you will find your way there. There's an interesting discussion. Should boards consider a say on climate at the next AGM? That will be an interesting discussion. There will be a keynote roundtable at the same time. How is Brazilian companies contributing to tackling climate change, which I know will be interesting for Catherine, for instance. The financing of this net transition. It's easy to think, it's easy on the paper, it's often very hard to do and get the finance to meet in the difference. So look at that. In many of these, it's actually my board colleagues from the CGI is present. So you can see Sabrina, Christian. On November 7, we welcome you back for another Board's Impact Forum, where we will talk about the purpose, motivation, and incentives, and how do you actually get that linkage to work? Is it only a motivation through incentives, or how do you run with a purpose? And we're super delighted to have Denise Koopmans, Thomas Franzén, and Sonja Tatar joining us to be part of that discussion. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for sharing your insights, and I look forward to continue the discussion.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.